Your Seattle Seahawks came into this Thursday night game with still everything within their grasp this season, including even the potential of having an opportunity to still retake that division from the San Francisco 49ers, as long as those odds may have been. You came into this game with everything at stake, playing on your home turf in front of your home crowd, and indeed you got basically outplayed in kind of every way in this football game. You lose 21-13, and this is not a loss about this going to one place, specifically a blame and saying it's all here as to the reason you lose this particular game. This game, very much like last week, is one in which you can hand out a lot of blame to a lot of different parties. You started out this game, offensively speaking, through the first two series, and it was horrific. More of the same in the respect of not able to generate any holes really in the running game, it all being on Geno's arm. And you were seeing a lot of really early pressure and getting yourself into a lot of those 3rd and 10, 3rd and 11, 3rd and 13 type situations, which it seemed like Seattle was just in all day long. As we've seen in recent note, the more one-dimensional we become, the less that we can run the football with any kind of consistency, the more the returns become diminishing in the passing attack. Even that passing attack that has been so vibrant this year. But if you just can't stop the run, defenses come to a point to realize you can't create any holes in the running game and that they can then start to squeeze down and tighten up those zones. And that is indeed, I think, what the San Francisco 49er defense was able to do throughout the course of this game. Pass blocking wasn't much better. Indeed, you struggled, and it's understandable why you would struggle. This is a very tough front of this 49er crew. They can get the job done. They create pressure all on their own without having to blitz, and indeed, they were able to do that again in this game. Nick Bosa showed you why he is a Defensive Player of the Year candidate. Felt like maybe in this one, Charles Cross had a little bit more of a difficult time with him in this game than he did in the first matchup of the season, but he struggled a bit, as did Lucas struggle on the outside with Samson Ekubon on the other edge, though he held up, I think, a little bit better. On the defensive side of the ball, once again, you struggled to stop the run in this game. 34 attempts for the San Francisco 49ers, 170 yards. Early on, I think they were improved in stopping the run, and they seemed to have kind of stepped up towards the task in order to meet Christian McCaffrey and the challenge of the San Francisco 49er offensive line and how hard they are to deal with. But it did start to kind of fail back and not able to kind of stay as stout as the game went along. Certainly the offense not able to consistently get drives going and putting the defense then in a position at that point to be on the football field for a long period of time throughout that game, and once again lose the time of possession, aided in the defense starting to fail there, but there were plenty of failures throughout in this game from the defense, and it not just being specifically in the running game. That's why I say when you look at this game, it's very hard to just look at one specific spot and say, here's the blame right here. Here's the reason you lose this game. I think if you wanted to try to simplify this game down to a bottom line, it's the same bottom line that we've been looking at and viewing over the last couple of weeks, and I'm not going to beat it to death too much here. And that bottom line is this. If you lose the line of scrimmage battle on both sides of the ball and lose it badly, you're not going to win the game, regardless of kind of whatever else happens over the course of the football game with the skill position players, with how you throw the ball, all of that. It will be decided quite simply at that point at the line of scrimmage. They could open up holes in the running game. You couldn't. They could generate a pass rush, a consistent pass rush with their front four. You really couldn't, as has been the case for a lot of this season, for the majority of this season. And it all just came together to build up towards this loss. There were other stuff that came out of this game too that to me is discouraging. This didn't seem like this team was all in the spirit of trying to win this game. They didn't seem like they were all playing with the same kind of fire and passion that I felt like I was seeing from the San Francisco 49ers. You had a Niner team come out on the road. They seemed more energized. They seemed to be the team that was actually playing for something. You had a team that had some of the players out there looking like they were going through a little bit of their motions a bit. And that's been a little bit of what I've seen from this team this year. It is so in wide deference to what we used to get to see with the Legion of Boom and the samurai-like blade of sharpness that they would play with, that edge. And now you're just dulled. You don't have anything that you bring to the table. You just kind of have everything taken to you. And there are some great debates being born out of this game. I'm already seeing the fan base kind of going at it, and you're seeing horns lock, and people saying it's talent, and other people saying it's scheme, and then some people in the middle of it, as to why the Seahawks are having their issues at this point in time in the year, because you would have thought coming into this game at this point in time in the season, in this rebuild, having the young players, having the opportunity to get their feet wet early on in the year, maybe they'd be playing their best ball right now. Maybe they would have been improving throughout this time. You thought with the adoption of the new Vic Fangio cover 2 shell scheme that it would then improve as the year went along, that you would see them ironing out the wrinkles, and it would be a well-honed machine by the end of the year, ready to inject itself forward and propel itself forward into the next season. But instead, that's not the case. When you're looking at both sides of the football right now, we're seeing a regression. We're seeing them both play their worst football as we get down to the end of the season. What to make of that? Certainly, I think the folks that bring up the talent problems on this team have a rightful place to stand on, and I wouldn't argue with that as far as that being a big part of what needs to be solved here. You're quite frankly at certain positions just not good enough, especially in that front seven. It really stands out. The interior of the offensive line needs to be addressed too, no doubt about that. So it's not just the defense here, but when you do look at that front seven in this game, the inability to create any pass rush, another game where a team just essentially decides we're just going to run it will at you and we will eventually break you, and they eventually broke us. That played out once again the very same way, and some of that does speak to talent and guys not performing up to snuff. You had a game here with Jordan Brooks where he's out in coverage, and he's twice in coverage, completely blows his assignment on George Kittle, one of the most important offensive players for the San Francisco 49ers, leaves him uncovered for a touchdown on both of those two plays, happens back to back. This comes in conjunction with what we've seen with Jordan Brooks throughout the course of this season, where he has struggled in coverage throughout, and he's struggled in coverage throughout the course of his career. That's not something that's been improved upon in the past. It's not improved this season. It's not likely improve in the future. You need better talent at the position to accomplish that. I don't think people are wrong who say it needs more talent. You do need more talent. I do think those people that point to this scheme and look at that and say that this is also some things in here that need to be fixed as well, that it is not just a chicken or the egg, it is the chicken and the egg. I do think having improved talent in here would improve and make this defense better. But if we're talking about truly turning this into a great defense, which is what the designs are of Coach Carroll, I would imagine, for the defense that he would like to turn out going into the future, then you've got to address both aspects of things. Take George Kittle, for instance. You have the San Francisco 49ers coming into this game with Christian McCaffrey as their main weapon, but the main skill position player weapon you're most worried about in this game, hitting you deep down the football field, is going to be George Kittle. But the Seahawks didn't devote any extra resources to Kittle. Indeed, you couldn't even get your initial point of resource being Jordan Brooks on Kittle, and you let him beat you. And we've seen this already at times in this year as well, haven't we? Where you go into a game with the Raiders, they're down Hunter Renfrow and Darren Waller. Okay, so they have Jacobs, their running back, and then they have Devontae Adams as really the only two skill position players that could be causing you any problems that could hurt you. And instead, you let those two guys go for 300 cumulative yards or 400 cumulative yards in that game. That's doesn't make any sense, and that comes back a little bit to scheme, and that you have no schematic designs there to be able to address these problem points when they come up. You've got nothing that you can be able to do to put your players in a better position to succeed or help them out a little bit. Instead, you say, no, Jordan, you're going to be out on that island. We know you suck when we put you out on that island in coverage against a tough tight end, but we're going to do so anyway. That's just what we do. We just run what we are. For the folks that lean so hard into saying that there's no schematic deficiencies here, I really wonder what it is you're watching on this team not to see the schematic failings. You have a secondary right now that runs these soft zone coverages that are continually beat easily on a weekly basis. How does that not speak back to schematics? How do you have a 3rd and 3 and you have your corners playing off coverage and then they drop into a bail technique post snap to give up an easy 5-yard completion in front of them? How does that not speak back to schematics to some degree? I would love to know for you in the comments. Please do post where I'm missing on that one, because that would seem a little bit less about talent and more about you opening up the front door and letting the thief inside. And that's a little bit of what happens at times with the schematics. That's again why I say it's both. It is, yes, you need more talent. Yeah, we got to inject a lot into this defense. Yeah, the interior of that offensive line needs help. But when it comes to the defense specifically and the soft zone coverages and the refusal, the absolute outright refusal to blitz, to not even consider it a possibility. You had in this game, Purdy started out 11 for 11 in this game. The 7th round, undrafted rookie quarterback third string quarterback, started out 11 for 11 in this football game. You finally forced an incompletion from him when you ran a blitz. You ran the run blitz and it was successful, stacking the box, bringing something up. And then you ran the second play, a fake blitz which threw him off and caused a second straight incompletion on back-to-back plays. You then proceeded to hardly blitz at all the rest of the game. And this is what we've seen week in and week out, where there's nothing schematically, there's nothing built in to give any of our players any kind of advantages. It just puts them out on the island, says, go play, make a play happen. And if you don't, well, then you're failing and it's all talent. I think we've got a bit of both here situation. And I feel like if we just look at this from it being only a talent problem, and that's where the only fix will come into play, that's the only necessary fix that needs to be applied, unless you're bringing in and stacking in Hall of Fame-like talent like you could do in the Legion of Boom days, then we're still going to be missing a big vulnerability to this team, not for this season, but into the future. Not for right now, but into the future. So when I talk about and bring up these concerns from this game, from my standpoint, it isn't about this season. This season has been successful. This season has been a raging success from what we thought it was going to be coming into the year. I would offer that I thought this team would be around 7 wins, and they are right now at 7 wins, so pretty close to where I thought they were going to be. So my expectation level is kind of right along the same path. But I would give some ground here and say that this has still been a fairly smashing success. You're on the right side of the Russell Wilson trade, historically speaking. You had the most amazing draft that you've had over the last 10 to maybe 20, maybe franchise history here. Those things have been great. The offense has been a top 6 offense throughout the course of this year, and there's a lot of that should carry over into future years. So this is not to be a negative Nancy here and to try to pull everything down. But the worries and concerns come from my standpoint of I want to look to see a team that can be elite down the road, not this year, down the road. And the way to getting elite down the road is to not have holes, to not have vulnerabilities that you leave as vulnerabilities for years on hand, for almost a half decade on hand. And these easy schematic holes that you open up at times defensively, the door that you open up to let those thieves walk right in through the front door, it's opened up too often. We've got to put some locks on those doors. Got to get some key codes put on those doors. Got to get one of those Nest cameras, maybe perhaps installed. So in my opinion, it is a little bit of both. I know that there is some stark disagreement right now in the Seahawks fan base. Like I said, it's a chicken or egg kind of situation, it seems like, and you're either in one camp or you're the other. I do find myself being in it's both. You brought on the Vic Fangio cover 2 shell scheme this offseason, and while you are running front 7 stuff that is Fangio-based, the coverages are not Fangio-based in my opinion. You're not seeing the diversity that Fangio would employ, and you're not seeing the pressure-based looks that Fangio would employ as well. So you're not really running his scheme. You're not really fully onboarding it. You're just sort of partially onboarding it. So then can we be surprised when it doesn't bring any kind of real success, when you're halfway from the old scheme and halfway to the new scheme? And you're not really committed philosophy-wise to one true scheme, so it doesn't really work. I say it's a bit of both. I say you got to get on both of these kind of fixed up, but I know that this is going to be a fierce disagreement amongst the fan base as we do move forward. There were some good parts of this team and in this game that I do want to speak about. Ryan Neal played absolutely marvelously in this game. He has played at a Pro Bowl level from the safety position here over the span of like 6-7 weeks since he's come back from that injury essentially that he had in training camp. He's been all over the field, whether he's in coverage, whether he's in the run game. He has absolutely been one of the things that has helped this team out. And I think at this point in time, it's either him or Uchenna Nwosu, if you're talking about who's been the defensive MVP here for this year, or Tariq Woolen, obviously, too, would be in that argument as well. But those 3 guys have been really stalwarts of this defense, and it's been really impressive to watch them go out and play. I thought Cody Barton did play an improved game out there in this one. He was definitely outperforming Jordan Brooks in this game, and he has steadily improved over the course of the season. Tanner Muse came in for Jordan Brooks and also showed some really, really fine play on his side of it. For defensive angle, there wasn't a lot else really great aside from that, of course. So you didn't do a lot of, as far as drawing pressure, or do get very many stops in the running game. But I do want to mention those guys because I thought that they played solidly. Offensively speaking, the tight ends were pretty good. Your receivers were all right. DK had a couple of tough moments with the penalty flag on a offensive pass interference. And then he also had a taunting penalty that he got as well. So he hurt you as far as from a penalty standpoint in this game. But he did make his catches when you threw him the ball, 7 catches for 55 yards. Tyler Lockett, also his same steady self as well, with 7 catches for 68 yards, though Tyler did go down to a broken finger, so that may very well shut him down here for the rest of the season. Geno Smith had himself a tough day all the way throughout. I think there were times that he was making some really good throws, as he has throughout the course of this year. He started out really rough, as he has as well this year, including last week where he saw him throw an interception on the very first play of the game. He had a couple of interceptable worthy throw plays here, and I've been very high in my praise of Geno. But you had a play that I believe was the second play offensively of the game where he's rolling out and he's cleared the pocket and he's got 5, 6, 7, 8 free yards there to have if he just scrambles. Instead, he tries to throw late and over the middle to Noah Fant. That is an unholy don't you dare do that from the quarterback position. Over the middle and late is a big time no-no from their standpoint of things. And that was right in the hands of the linebacker. He just dropped it. You had another time later on in this game where Joey Bosa hits Geno right after he throws it. Geno throws it up kind of for grabs at that point. The ball's then intercepted, and Bosa got called for a roughing the penalty passer on that play, which was not really the right call by the officials. We got one on that one, so to speak. So as he's had a couple times this year, Geno had a couple of turnover-worthy plays that easily could have gone the other direction, that he got kind of the benefit of the guy just not holding on to the ball, or a penalty that got pulled at that point, and it kind of bailed him out on that, then ends up making his day look a little bit better. He still made some absolutely awesome throws and reads in this game. There was a toss he made to Derek Young, rookie Derek Young, by the way, on a little teardrop throw right over the top that he put it right in the bucket. Unfortunately, it neutralized that one a little bit. Very sloppy game from the penalty front of things. A lot of calls, and I can't do what I sometimes can normally do where I say I didn't feel like we got the benefit of the calls in this game. I felt like this game was at the very least evenly officiated. If not, this was maybe the one game I could remember this year where it felt like we actually got some calls that were more in our benefit than we're in a detriment to, that we maybe were on the plus side of that rather than on the negative side of that as it is. So you had a lot in this game in kind of your favor as far as the stage set to take this over and to win this game. You know, you're playing at home. You got the Niners on a short week, having to travel out on the road. They've got their third string rookie quarterback out there. No Deebo Samuel, maybe their most dangerous offensive threat. And still through a lot of this game, you didn't mount much of a fight. You didn't look like you were anywhere near the same level of the San Francisco 49er team. And maybe that is understandable. Maybe that is just simply the talent deficiency that is at play here, that they are just more talented. They're in their window. We're striving to try to get to even a window state of competitiveness as far as being an elite team. And I can certainly be sold on that. That very well may be the case. But you do come away from this game seeing the team not seeming quite ready to play, seeing the sloppy brand of football, seeing where they get out-coached at times on the field from an X's and O's standpoint. And it does make you wonder about certain things. It does make you wonder about certain things. I have hope this team can get back into the future. I think they will get back to front in the future. Having the 4 picks through the first 2 rounds, having the $50 million in money to spend in free agency is going to aid to take this team far into the future. But if we want to get back to being an elite team again, if we want to be back to a team that aspires for Super Bowls, you can't leave schematic shortcomings on the table all the time, every single game, and hope to be getting the playoffs and get really far in the playoffs with that being the reality of your situation. They got to hem that part up as well. More talent, better scheme, or some schematic advantages, I guess, is maybe the way to better put it, because people seem to get triggered by the word scheme changes. So schematic advantages would be nice to see in the eventual hopeful future, because there is a reason why Coach Carroll changed off this defense. There's a reason why he didn't want to run the 4-3 under anymore, because he recognized its day had been seen. But yet you still are running a lot of the old designs within this very defense. Tough loss all the way around. I'm not going to dress it up. This season is still a successful season. You are still much further ahead in this rebuild than you thought you were going to be when we landed at this point in time in the year. Doesn't mean that there aren't still some concerns as we look towards the future, but it does mean that there's more to be encouraged here than there is to be upset by, shall I say, to put it nicely. So keep the faith, my fellow Seahawks fans. I understand that we're all a little bit disappointed after this loss, and we're going to have some vibrant debate here as we move into the future about cause and how to fix things and what needs to be fixed. But regardless, there will be better days ahead. So keep that faith, keep that smile on your face. Please hit that like button. Please subscribe. I appreciate you watching. But beyond all that, don't you ever forget. Go Hawks.